So part two. Part two.
Let's do this.
Let's do this. So we didn't know this was going to happen, but the other day we spoke about spiritual bypassing, and it kind of turned into sharing about our journey of going from polar opposites of bypassing the world issues to completely getting into them and wanting to share about them. And it's like the journey of being the activist versus spiritually bypassing and turning a blind eye. And we spoke into the shadow a lot about spiritual bypassing. Today, we want to share about the shadow side of activism and whatever else, comes through. So we ended up with some strange tangents, so you have to bear with us. I'm sure the description you read has nothing to do with what I just said, but whatever, we'll see.
It's just how we roll.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. I think you fly.
Feels like it this time. So. Yeah. So I guess the shadow side of activism is something that has always launched me into the realm of love and light. Everything's okay. You can change your world, your reality from within inside. And if you get caught up in these massive issues or agendas, you're just playing into the game, you're fueling the fire, you're coming from a place of hate and anger, and that's the shadow side. And that's exactly why we run away from this. And in my personal experience, I've just gone pole swinging back and forth my whole life. And I think having a pretty strong empathic nature from the moment I remember being aware. I remember a couple of things from the moment I was aware. This can't be all this is. Mm-hmm. I could feel everything, and I didn't believe my current reality. I knew there was something more. So those were my first experiences of realizing that I was a human being. I was an aware being. So, it was
a little girl
for a little girl to handle. Yeah. And I remember not being able to separate my feelings from my mum particularly, but from everyone else in my family. And I switched it off pretty quickly. And I guess as I grew up, it got activated in me as a teenager, and I turned into that activist again. But then when I was about 23, 24, it burdened me, it overwhelmed me, and my system shut down, because the more I found out about what was going on in our world, the more it impacted my mental health. And I've had a battle with mental health my whole life. I go into deep, dark, waves of depression that can last for some time. And I've had a massive mental breakdown. I've had 2 or 3, I think now, bouts of chronic fatigue, and it really impacts my mental health. And I find in those times that all I want to do is pull the blanket over my head, and I don't want to know what's going on. And inherently, you just can't trust the media. What's being reflected back to us is not necessarily the truth. So it's really difficult to find information that, I guess, captures the reality of what's going on. It's very easy to fall into the agendas of fighting amongst each other and falling into those debates of extreme, anything that is taking up your time is what we discovered today, isn't it? It's if it's stealing your time, that's what you want to question. So social media being one of them, because Carly and I have had, I can speak for myself, but I've had a lot of time on my hands, and Carly's got more going on, raising a family, but there's just time. There's this element of freedom and time that I know other people don't have. And when humans have time, they question what's being fed to them. So the agendas are definitely there to take away your time and distract you and get you fighting amongst each other and not looking at the bigger picture. So we love to look at this bigger picture. So we don't just say, there's, bushfires. We look at the strategic, setup of why there's fires and how long this has been going on for, and what they plan to do with the land afterwards. And it's just there's all of it. It's it's a big picture. So we love to look at that big picture. But when we get caught up in the big picture, it can be really scary. You can feel hopeless and defeated before you even like begin. And the more you realize, like the tunnel, the rabbit holes just keep going. You dig and you find hundreds of more tunnels, and you can just keep going and going and going. And it's like, so I guess I come across a lot of people who I really love and respect because they have devoted so much of their life over to sharing about the bigger picture. But I also see many of them are very lost in the process. Yeah, like it's like they're disconnected from what's going on. There's only a couple of people that I really am able to follow that I'm like, they've got the bigger picture and they're operating from their power and their heart space. And you know, like that moral human compass is where they're coming from, and they look good and they feel good when you're in their presence. Their energy feels amazing. In fact, it's the best energy I felt. One person in particular, it's like, you're the best energy I felt of a human being in my life, yet you know more than the rest of the world about what's going on as far as I'm concerned. So so it is possible to find that beyond, and I guess to get there we need to look at the dark side of activism. So
all right. I think so I'll start with my journey. I guess I've always had that activist thread in me, but not in the like, I'm going to change the world activist. It's always been about standing up for what I believe in. And if ever I've felt wronged, I've always stood up and said so. And it's got me into a lot of trouble in my immediate world, but I've never been able to not do it. But it always came from a place of, ultimately was coming from a place of wounding. And I only feel now, I've even just had an experience in this last week where I just really stood in my truth, and I don't allow that someone else's wounding to shift me off course, and just be really solid and grounded in like what I'm seeing and what's playing out, and just calling it out, I guess, but in a place that's not coming from a place of, there definitely was no emotional triggers or anything like that for me. I just felt really solid and just like, this is not right. And so I guess that's where the activism part has always come in for me, is that I just feel so strongly about, one, I've always questioned everything as well, but I just feel so strongly about our rights as humans, that started out as just my personal rights, like my freedom, and like fighting against anything that kind of tried to squash that in me. That's where it always flared out in the world. So when you're talking about like the mental health, I think that this is something that is very real in this, because when we're looking at the bigger picture, which is what we were really talking about in that last video, is going like, it's so important to look at the bigger picture. And we're just having this conversation just before and going, this is really important. But I think we also need to speak into the fact how important it is also to zoom back into your reality, because what we see happening in so many people who, like Julia said, going down this path of like seeking the truth, is there is a element of losing touch with the reality of what is also playing out, and their immediate reality of life. You go so far into the tunnels that there's almost there's a disconnect that starts to happen. And so it's important to have awareness of like the bigger picture. Okay, these are the things that are playing out, some of the things, because I don't think we're ever fully aware of all of it, but then coming back in and just zooming back into our personal reality and looking at like, okay, what do I have control over for a start? Like, I have a control over how I show up and how I respond to things. Like, I don't have control of what's going on out there, but how I respond to it is super important. But it's just reconnecting with humanity and reconnecting with people through the heart, like being present with family, being present with children, getting out into nature. This is another thing. It's like when you're so time poor, these are the things, what are the first things that go? It's like you go, I don't have time to go to the beach. I don't have time to go out and hang out with trees. Or the family time even then gets pushed back because it's like, oh, I got to clean my house this weekend and I got to do the gardening or whatever, like all those little things that the whole way that society is set up at the moment is to really make us time poor, and then throw in a bit of social media, and then even people who've got time spend it scrolling and going, oh, I don't have time for that. And it's not that we don't have time, it's just not a priority. We're not making the important things a priority. That's what I know, that's been my truth. And it's something that, especially this year, I've noticed a real shift this year in me, in that really making those little things an important priority. And yeah, so the shadow side of activism is that, and I mentioned this in the last video, I think. I don't know. I talk about stuff so I talk so much. I forget who I say it to or when, but I think I mentioned that I wrote this post maybe just over a year ago about that, the shadow side of activism. And when it's born from a place of fear and hate, you completely lose the exact people who you're wanting to connect with, because it's felt on the other end that that's all it is. It's like hate. And I see this playing out in the vegan movement so strongly, because the love of animals, which I think is amazing, comes over the love of humanity and seeing the inherent good in humanity. And that just because people choose to eat meat doesn't make them a vile human being, you know. And it happens in a lot of in extremism. It's in the extremes, you know, like that we start to see the shadows play out, rather than, like you're saying, like finding what is beyond being in one of the polar opposites. Like we've got to come back to that middle ground, because it's like the feminist movement versus the MRAs, like the men's rights activists. There's valid stuff in both, but there's also a lot of like extreme viewpoints that aren't serving either parties, or it's serving one but not both. It's serving one very well.
Do we need to say which one?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a conversation we've been wanting to delve into as well, is the whole feminist movement and the feminism of men and all of that. That's a whole other probably conversation to delve into, not today, but conversations. But it all ties in, because you know, when we're taking an activist stance, there is always going to be, it's not a win-win situation. That's the thing, is that there's always someone that is going to be, you know, coming up against. And yeah, I don't know, we don't profess to have the answers. But
it's just like, again, it's just the tuning into the experience, and it's like tuning into the way like extreme activism is playing out in the world. If we had to look at the energies of what is driving these situations, it's definitely force as opposed to real organic power. And there is like it's just like a game of tug of war. It's like push back, and there is like authority just comes down, and then people are like, fuck you, and it comes down, and people are like, fuck you again, and it goes all over again. So we see that in the way that people are protesting. There is something so important about the emotions of fear and anger and hopelessness and resentment, and all these feelings are totally valid. But it's like, that is definitely for me something that I want to deal with personally, or with solid people in my life that can hold space for me while I go through that. It's not what I want to send back out into the world. And it's amazing the things that have been happening around the world. Particularly with quite a number of communities in Australia who have basically stopped 5G towers going up, Currumbin Valley being one of them, which is incredible. And all of the work and the tears and the blood and the sweat and the talking and the advertising, the promoting and getting out and speaking to people, I do not want to in any way take that away, and I think they've done an amazing job. But all these things are temporary situations, because a lot of force was used against force. And when that power changes, in those communities, they have another opportunity just to do it all over again. And we've seen this play out with genetically modified foods. Like, people have worked so fucking hard to share information about GMOs and Monsanto, and worked really hard to get labeling change, and all they need to do is go, boom, we're changing the strain and we're changing the name, which is what they've done. Yeah. So exactly now the whole world's been informed about GMO, I hope, and now there's a whole new name and people don't recognize that. So that it's just like all this pushback suddenly just gets replaced with another authority over. And what we want to do is the middle ground between this activism, extreme activism, and turning a blind eye is being connected to our moral compass and knowing our rights and choosing to be empowered from within. And I'm seeing a future, this is what I'm feeling into now, where people don't comply and they don't use force. Like, I saw a really powerful image of a silent protest. Now, when people are angry protesting, the media can do some crazy shit. To make it look like those protests. Yeah, way worse. And then the police can use force. But when people are standing in their power, in their heart center, and they're silent, and they're just like, I know my rights, I know why I'm here, and I don't need to use force because inherently I'm all powerful. And they stand in that place, that speaks 1,000 words more than screaming. Yeah. And that non-spoken body language, that gesture of just when you see humans standing in their power, if you've ever had the privilege of really to witness that, it is an incredible experience. And if you never feel like you've witnessed that, I can guarantee you that when you do, you will realize how disempowered humans are when you go and deal with the average human being in their day-to-day life, and you see how much they don't believe in themselves, they don't support themselves, they second guess themselves, they need someone to take care of them, that they're in a victim state, and they're just a victim to all the different agendas playing out. But when you see someone who's really in their power, it's like it's infectious, and it gives other people strength that radiates from inside without, and it lights the flame inside the next person and the next person. This, like, the way humanity can wake up and reclaim their true nature and their power is a domino effect, and it will spread like wildfire when we activate each other. And when you can be in that space and surround yourself with those people and realize how much it influences you and watch it spread amongst your family and friends, that you cannot stop the speed of that awakening. It will take very little time. Yeah. Which is why all these agendas are in place. And, like this 2030 agenda, like, that's only 10 years away. And all of it is around taking away our human rights. That's what it comes back to, like just basic human rights, and to the absolute extreme. And we're not going to go right into that right now, but there's definitely a post coming on that, I think. But understanding what is going on and having awareness of it, even if you don't understand it, actually, I don't think it's even about understanding, it's about awareness, and just not going into the spiritual bypassing, and not going into the fuck them, we have to like do something. That doesn't work either. Like, I see that as well. Like, it's like you're totally missing the fucking point. If you're going to come from that, you can't fight to win this. Like, it's not a fight that is going to be, at least I hope there is no violence. It may get to a point where there is some, but we can't fight fire with fire. And there needs to be some really grounded action that is taken, not coming from the mind, because that's where it is. It's like this mental body of like over analyzing. This is just what I'm seeing in some of the posts of people that are sharing information like this. It's like, it's not helpful to come from that place of fuck them, basically. Whilst we have a bit of that energy in us, we all do, and that's what our freedom is wanting us, is calling forth in us. It's like we can't just stand by and let this happen, but it can't come from a place of
ultimately I feel like when I read those posts, I'm like, fuck them, they can't do this to us. What I feel behind that is powerlessness, exactly what you're saying, like feeling so disempowered. And that can't be where we come from, because it's not going to shift stuff. But we can't also love and light over everything and think that it's all perfect, and that we can just keep doing the inner work and the world will change. It's really about doing both. So yeah,
it's really ironic. I find that this whole like potential dystopian future that we could be heading into. So if you're not sure of that term, it's like pretty much every sci-fi, futuristic sci-fi you've seen put together. But really the overriding one that just keeps being obvious to me is that we're heading into a George Orwell 1984 scenario, but it's 40 years later, and it's just like so much more fluffed up and prettied up and made it look like it's there to support and help us. But turning like a blind eye and go, no, I surrender to everything that's meant to happen, and just being like bystanding and watching the whole thing unfold. If your role is to just hold a really fucking powerful vibration that lifts people out of the gutter, then that's fine, but know your role and do that. But don't, like, for me, it's like, don't be avoiding what's going on, because the irony for me is we could prevent all of this from happening if people start looking into a timeline that, wow, I see what's unfolding. There's a potential for a dystopian future ahead where our rights and our thoughts and everything and what we believe and what we say and what we speak is greatly limited. And by leaning in and going, wow, this could be our future, and leaning into that wound and transforming that with collectively is actually how I think we can avoid it.
Agreed.
But to turn the blind eye and go, this is not going to happen, is exactly the pathway to making it happen. Because like, if I look at those extreme ways of handling things, I know for certain that the new age, the whole new age like movement that has been running rampant around the world has 80% incredible practices that have fucking saved my life and helped me get out of, just turn me into the person that I am today. But it's been massively hijacked, and there is a lot of savior energy.
Oh, totally.
And if it's not like Christ will come and save you, like from, or any other of the major religions have their own version of that, the new age is like, oh no, you're just going to ascend. And the earth has got this, and we're fine, and you're going to ascend, and everything's going to be okay, and you won't need food anymore, so don't worry about GMOs, because you won't, your light body won't eat it and all this stuff. And it's like, well, it's like, how do you leave a place where like, I don't leave a place like a dump when I've been there. I try and like clear and connect to my energy and clear up. And I don't want to, if whatever happens to humans, I'm not going to leave this world a fucking nuclear waste dump. That's not what I want to do. That's not responsible. But it's like getting into that extreme, like turning a blind eye. It's like there is a lot of entities that are feeding information to people around, just wait, we're going to come and save you, and these planetary beings and the Galactic fucking Federation Council are going to come and help you, and it's all good. And it's like, how do you know they're not the ones pulling the strings? And anyway, it's like a lot of just sit back and wait, and it's going to be okay. And I get that there is a time and place for that. That is really important, because wow, my whole life right now is a reflection of the feminine yin journey, where I am doing a lot of sit back and waiting for action. And I get that that's really important, but to completely do nothing and feel nothing and pretend that everything is okay, it's like you keep hearing these stories like, just wait, the human collective is upgrading and the light codes are fucking coming through and blah, blah, blah. I've never really seen like much evidence of that necessarily happening the way that it was meant to unfold, but it's like the same story being read over and over again.
Yeah,
and
everything's changed.
Everything's changed.
Like,
And it was
no,
well, there's waking up, but there's not what you're saying is happening. It's not happening. And then there's the other extreme where the activists will kind of saying, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, blah blah blah, and they have been for years. People have been talking about Agenda 21. But guess what? They're the ones that are actually predicting the future. They're the ones that are like, oh, actually, I think you're right. This is happening right in front of us. It is really clear. So I'm going to pay attention over here. And I know that it's something that I cannot turn away from. So maybe it's just like a matter of feeling in to yourself and what feels right for you. Can you change the entire of your world from the inside? Or would it be best to do that and take personal responsibility and also change it from the external world as well, like actually with your actions and what you do? And the same with like that full activist side is, what are you doing when you're extreme in what you're sharing, what you're saying, and how you're turning up and how you're lighting fires in people? It's great, you've got to light fires in people right now, I get that. But are you adding fuel to the fire? Can you maintain this? Is it helping? So it's like, where is that middle ground, or what is beyond those two different experiences that can help us through this collective journey that we're on?
Because the majority will just respond to that extreme activism with just like, oh, for fuck's sake, like that kind of energy, which just you end up, they just switch off, and that's not helpful either. And this is what the point of the door wants to open.
That was a long creak.
That was really creaky. And what was freaky is that door was shut. And
it just opened.
We're like, the three both looked, what was that? Because I definitely shut that door. And I think ultimately it comes down to, though, just being in our heart. That's what, and not in the like fluffy love and light kind of way, in a very grounded, like connecting into our body. This is the thing. So many of the spiritual practices take us out of our body, and we are humans. And this is the whole thing. And I saw the meme again, which I used to love, but then I saw it the other day and I was like, something around, I'm a spirit in a human body, whatever. I'm not a human being, basically, is what it was saying. It's just I'm a spirit coming here to have a what is it?
It's like coming here to have a human experience.
Yeah, but we totally forget. And the way this one was worded a little bit differently as well than what I normally see. And I was like, no, we actually have to. It was all about being spirit. That's what it was. It's like really being connected to that, which is so fucking important. But again, it's like the balance of the two. It's like we are here to be human. We're not here to be aliens. We're not here to be ascend to the fifth dimension. Like, if we truly understand how this universe construct is created, you would know you're already there and you don't have to ascend to anything. So that just totally throws that whole bullshit agenda out of the window instantly, which anyone who's followed me for any number of years would know I was totally in that world. And yeah, once you see through it, it's like, fuck, how can I not see that? But yeah, everything to me comes back to full embodiment. Like fully coming back into our bodies and feeling. This is something, I was talking about this morning. It's like when you were going to say a whole sentence and it's like something like, oh, people don't feel, and then it's like, no, that's the full stop. Just full stop. People don't feel. We're afraid of feeling because it can be really overwhelming to actually feel the whole gamut of human emotions. Really, when you really start to come into your body and allow yourself to feel, I think, fuck, no wonder I switched off from this shit when I was a kid. Like, this is really big and can be painful. But when we distract ourselves from it, that's what I think it's not helpful. It's not serving us in any way to distract and not feel it. I feel way more connected to everything and everyone when I actually allow myself to just go into my body and feel what it is that I'm needing to feel. And it goes through pretty quickly. That's the thing, is that we tend to want to like grasp onto it rather than just allow ourselves to be in it and be okay with feeling it and not knowing what it is or where it's coming from sometimes. So yeah, I think ultimately we need more people coming back into their bodies and operating from that space of like through the heart. And this is some of what would be new agey stuff that is true. Like, it's real to come back into your heart, but not with all the fluff and white light and all the other, I don't know, crap that goes along with it. It's just like, just keep it simple. There's so much hijacking to make it overcomplicated, I think, whereas and that's where it loses its essence, because then you go into confusion instead of just really just planting our feet in the earth and connecting with the earth and connecting with ourselves and connecting with the people around us. That's what it comes back to for me every time.
It is completely vital on this path that every human being is doing what they can to remember that they're human. And the biggest thing that's been ripped away from us is our experience with our natural world. And we're boxed in houses that do not honor the flow of energy, which is not like our building codes are set to block that. We're in climate controlled areas. We're blocked away from the sun. We're fed a lot of fear around the sun. And then we're working for long hours. We spend a lot of time indoors. And right now we're starting to see what's going to unfold, which is a really big fear campaign around how unsafe it is to live in rural areas in Australia. And it will unfold, and you will see.
It's already happened.
You'll see, it's already like unfolding in the media. It's like they're putting stories out about we can't reinsure these places. What about the firemen and all this stuff? And it's like, well, of course, if you deliberately light all these fires, it's really easy to say, hey, it's no longer safe to be here. But these are all things that sever our cord from Mother Earth, and our connection with the natural world. Out of all the spiritual practices and the big awakenings and all the incredible work that I've done over the years, which is all part of the new age, nothing beats my experiences with nature, taking my shoes off, planting them in the ground, putting my hands on trees, sitting by a river and just singing, listening to the birds and spending lots of time in nature every day. I am constantly fed information and I'm pulled into my body. And when you're in nature, you are pulled right into your whole body. But our world is operating from the mental body. It's through technology and education and intellectual intelligence, which is the only thing that's revered here. And it's all up in this mental body. But that's also where all the mind control happens, where the thought implants, where the constant stream of information is coming through media and television and radio and all the things that you read, it's all operating from the mental body, and people get so disconnected from their actual body that it is a fearful place to be. And that's where I feel like a lot of this, like people who are really intensely in that activism world get caught up in the information. And it's really important that you ground down and you release, and you can connect with a tree every single day and you will give each other exactly what you need, not just carbon dioxide to oxygen, but you'll exchange. They like absorb what we do, the opposite. We absorb each other what we need to get rid of and need. Like that's inherently what my body tells me when I'm standing with a tree. It's like it's a fair exchange. And when you do that every single day and you get really into your body, this is my personal experience, and I'm sure it's the same for Carly, is that you cannot see the world the way other people see it. And it's like you're absolutely shocked at what people are accepting as reality. And just even things like going for a walk in this beautiful estate today. I mean, this is a magical part of the world, and there's a nature reserve at the back doorstep. There are trees everywhere. There's this life. When you drive around the towns here in North Sunshine Coast, there's just lots of greenery. Like, the council's done an amazing job of just leaving as much greenery as possible. You drive 50 k's down the highway and you'll see these mass housing estates, like one called Harmony, one called Aura. These fucking new age names. They have decimated the land. There's not a blade of grass. They're there, so then they just put house after house after house, and then they plant whatever they need to plant, but it's completely removing the natural environment from people. And this is like, the most important thing is definitely getting connected back into that on a daily basis, and teaching that to your children, and taking them out and spending time with nature. And then when we're connected into nature, you can never feel alone. You have all the elements working on your side. You get all the support, all the signs that you need. And it is a very empowering place to live. So it's really just, what I'm trying to say is, you're a human being. You were born. This is your home. This is Earth. Every second that you're severing your connection with your natural environment, you are disempowering yourself. And no wonder you may be feeling this way. And yeah.
I think the other thing that happens when you're spending a lot of time in nature is your discernment is heightened. Like, you're really so connected with the natural world that it allows you to see through so much more of what's going on. And that's what I want to invite people into, especially the ones that are already delving into this information, is that be discerning with all of it. Like, we were reading a post this morning that, while there was elements of it that were like, yeah, I agree with this, there was some really fucking
the Agenda 21 post.
Or 2030, yeah.
Or 2030 post, yeah.
You're fucking missing the mark, mate. And that's because you can just see there's just so much up in the mental body going on that it's kind of loses its essence of what could have been a really powerful post to share. There's just some stuff in there that's like, no, that's totally missing the mark. And it's not that we say we have all the answers and that we're right and someone else is wrong, but there's just some really blatant, what would you call it? I don't know. I don't even have the words, but just some like
pretty extreme views.
Extreme views that are so disconnected from what I would say is reality. But, you know, even if that was reality, it's still not going to be helpful to share that, even if it was, you know. And that's where this is where the discrediting to people who are speaking out about things starts to come in. Like you, there's a couple that I really connect with and feel like they're really coming from a place of sovereign energy. And then I see others that are sharing and they're really coming from a place you can see is like they legitimately give a shit and just sharing whatever they can. But there's also been some lack of discernment in what the information sources are coming from, and really just buying into anything that agrees with that worldview rather than being a little bit more discerning and going, okay, well, this is coming from somewhere that I would not really be overly trustworthy. This is what I always, anything that I see, the first thing I check is what's its source? Like, where's this coming from? Because if anything is in mainstream media, for a start, it's like instant. There's an agenda behind this, because there's nothing that gets shared in mainstream media that doesn't go through a very strict protocol of what is allowed to be shared and what isn't. If you think there's anything real about journalism, then there might be a little reality check that needs to happen there. But there is nothing in mainstream media that isn't cultivated and created to support a view that they want the majority of the population to believe, climate change included. And even if this is the thing that is like with governments, why are the governments not giving anything back on this? They're denying it. That's a fucking agenda too. Like, even with the I don't think it's a coincidence. I was reading about this morning with the California fires in Paradise. The Greens over there just coincidentally happened to ban, like push back on back burning and everything too. Exactly the same thing that happens here. So that instantly is like, it totally discredits any argument that this fucking door that it is legitimate that the Greens just decided to stop the back burning. Like, it was always going to be, it's like, okay, now you just need to say, I don't know what goes on up there, but let's just imagine that's kind of what plays out. It's like, right, Greens, you need to say, we're not doing any back burning. And we're like, oh, okay, it's all the Greens' fault. But ultimately what happened? No back burning happened. So all of these things, it goes back to what we were saying in that last video around thinking that, if we just vote these people in, then it's all going to be better. It's like, no, it's not.
It's a game of chess. Yeah. And it's all orchestrated, so it's not really anyone's fault. Everyone's just playing their role. And there might have been a lot of money just taken away from the resources, and there may be less times to burn off that was safe, and just not enough access to money and resources to do it. And there could have been, like, when people have played like chess, there's a lot of like control and power, and you're going to do this in order for us to not do that. But there's also a lot of stuff that there's not in their conscious awareness.
They just don't know. Yeah.
It's actually been fed to them. Like, there are definitely technologies implanting thoughts and ideas in people's heads. This has been around for years. And this is how so many of these agendas get fulfilled by the average Joe or the average person, is because that they're being fed this. And then there's like off-world energies that come through and connect with people and feed them this information. It's like, and then the other thing is, in the mainstream media, about like, there's always an agenda playing out. It doesn't always necessarily mean it's like an agenda that's going to have detrimental effects. It can be benevolent agendas. The issue is it's cultivated, it's planned. And if you feel into that, you'll know what's going on. But the thing is, you can't trick a human being that's in their body. You can only trick them when they're in their mind. Totally. The best thing you can do for humanity to really wake up and look at what's going on and not be controlled and manipulated like chess on a board game is dropping into your body and using your heart as your moral compass. Because whenever you work with people from that space and you have conversations with them from that space, you can see that they are empowered and that they are choosing their own version of the truth, and they're connected into what is true for them. And really, through connecting into those subtle energies that we've mentioned on like a lot of other videos as well, is that if you just tune into what is true for you and what feels right and what doesn't, and you really start moving away from the information overload that is not making people smarter, it's making them dumber. It's like, if you move away from that and drop in and start and working with your body and your heart space, it's not even information, it's like the knowing that comes through is powerful and it's strong, and it's like it's different. You just know. It's like, it feels different. And then it's really hard to see how people are so easily controlled and manipulated, but they inherently are, and that's because of this space. So that's why the education system and all the workplaces and institutions, they might all serve a purpose and do all these things, and there's all these wonderful things about them, but they've been massively hijacked, because when you look at the overall picture, they are there and designed and set up so you live here and you don't live there.
Totally. And I just want to mention about, in case this is someone's first time, watching one of our videos, when you're talking about like the malevolent technologies and the mind control and stuff, recorded a video on that and a conversation on that, and like we speak into specific patents that are out there. Like this isn't just us going, oh, we're being mind controlled and we think this is happening. No, it's really fucking happening. It's like, it's there. The information is really out there for people to find if you go looking for it. And I mean, just some of the patents that we shared, like one was 1974 and one was like 2001, which when you say that doesn't sound like that long ago, but that's like 20 years ago now. You know, these are, and I would say they have been around long before that even.
Oh yeah.
But even 1974, that's more than my entire life, where a technology that is able to literally project itself into someone's mind and create thoughts is out there and it's being used. And so this isn't just like two crazy chicks thinking like some, you know, paranoid things are going on. Like, it's real. This is actually real. And if you just take the time to look, then you know. And this is how this whole conversation came about, is because we were like fully fucking spiritually bypassing all this shit. Like, I know for me, I first started coming into all of this information, not all of it, but a lot of it started like 2010, I reckon, like a good 9 years ago. And I was just like, this is way too overwhelming. I don't want to know about this. And went into like love and lighting on everything, thinking that that was going to change the world. And the reality is that's not true. And that's exactly what they would have us believe, because it's the perfect distraction. Like how easy is it to create all of this change that has been happening under our noses without us doing anything, when people are just like, oh no, I'll just sit over here and meditate the fuck out of my life and pretend that's not happening out there. And you're totally subservient and you're totally like distracted from what is going on. That is exactly how things get passed and changed so easily. So easily. And next time you see a hashtag movement or, you know, anything that seems like, oh, this is a really great thing that's happening, you know, we're talking about gay marriage this morning, and I am all for it, 100% all for it, but not at the loss of our human rights. And that's exactly what happened when that got pulled through. And it should have happened without that, and it could have happened without that. But everyone was so distracted by the excitement of that being able to happen. And I'm truly excited for people to be able to marry the person that they love. So do not take this as being anything other than that. Like, I truly am, and
it just got hijacked. Amazing.
It fucking got hijacked.
A beautiful thing should have been stayed that way. Just pure, but it got turned.
It got hijacked,
painted.
and some really scary family law things went through with that. And
so what do you feel could be, how can that be used in the future? Because it's obviously just sitting right now.
Oh, the law.
Yeah, like it's just sitting,
to take our children away from us. We have no guardianship rights over our children, actually, now, when those things went through. That's scary. It's like, I want to cry with 4 kids.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's like every single thing that is natural to the human being, like the family unit, and the community, the connection with nature, is being destroyed, and we're being completely isolated. And technology is one of the best weapons being used for this experience, which is to disconnect humans from their body, from their families, from nature, from everything that's actually natural. And a whole artificial world is being created, and the only way that you can herd these people into this ideology where you control the population and put on heavy surveillance and social crediting systems. And like in these smart cities that they're, you know, planning, like there's a post going around about one in Mexico right now.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that in these smart cities, the only people that will be in there are ones who are microchipped and vaccinated and don't think outside the square, don't have thought crimes. It's about controlling what we think and what we speak, and all of your appliances in your homes can pick up what you're saying. And when all these systems are introduced, which are going to fold out, it's the only way humans can digest this experience and have that freedom and rights and their uniqueness taken away is to be a bit like, oh, the sky is falling in. And this is how climate change has been used. So yes, there's been massive destruction to the environment by humans. And and anyone who knows me knows I've cared about this my whole fucking life, but I'm not going to for 1 second buy that these fires just happened, or that these massive, you know, issues that are happening that seemingly are the environment. I know geoengineering's been around since like probably World War II. And that this has been tested for a very long time, and they can manipulate the climate. And now it's been brought up into the mainstream news as this is how we save the world. You know, hey, by the way, we are doing geoengineering, but you don't care anymore because we've been fighting for years and you're desensitized and now you care about gay marriage or something, or the transgender movement. So who cares? So that's how it's all like brought in. And now what they've been doing that, you know, we've been saying for years has been happening. They're like, yeah, by the way, it's been happening. And it's perfectly fine. We're doing this for the environment. So we digest and buy this bullshit, because the most scariest thing is our environment collapsing around us, and fires and floods and storms and all these things are just like, and war and famine and access to water. So all this is hyped up through the media in such a way and spread like wildfire that humans are like, holy shit, we'll do whatever.
Save us.
Fine, put metals in the sky, reflect this, do that, put us into smart cities. Oh, you need us to microchip? Fine. Like they just don't want to die. Like, and this is like playing off our biggest fears. And the bigger agendas are what's really going on. Like I think again, it's like Max Egan, how he says, we're not free enough to know. We certainly are not. But one thing that is really true to me, if I tune into the subtle energies and what's happening to our planet and humanity, and I see us being taken away and removed from our natural world, is the one thing that is absolutely clear to me is our whole environment is being changed. And it's been changed possibly to suit a different type of species. I don't know, but all of our soil's being changed, our weather, whatever it is, it's like everything is being altered from its natural state. So I'm going to just suggest that perhaps biological life is not welcome, or for whatever reason. And whatever it is, there's so much power in our connection with nature. Who knows? And what they're hurting people into these cities and controlling them. I don't know why any of this is happening. There's no fucking way I'm going to sit here and say I know, but my body is telling me that this is off. And we are speaking to those people who are feeling this, they know there's something not right about this. You're just not quite buying this bullshit. Like the example I used this morning when we were talking about Facebook, and how a lot of people say it's like run by the CIA, but I was reading, you know, all these kind of whistleblowing from the inside articles today about, you know, Mark Zuckerberg just being the face of, you know, the geeky face of Facebook. He's been military tested on for years. It's not necessarily his fault. The whole story is a lie, but it's basically just being used as a system to distract people's time and then data control them and then data mine them. So data mine, distract them. And then it's actually, these whole social media platforms are used as digital addictions. And that's why they have those dopamine hits and this obsession with and when we put our awareness into the digital world, again, we can be controlled and manipulated. And I was only just saying, right now, nearly a third, according to many reports, but who knows, like you don't know anymore, but nearly a third of the world has a Facebook account. A third of the human population. This is like the only time I've ever heard of anything like this having such an impact on humanity's collective as a whole. Now, if a third of the world, you know, a third of the population in the world have a Facebook account, they released a movie years ago about the origin story of Facebook. That movie was a fucking flop. It was stupid. Everyone hated it. It was like, it didn't make it anywhere. But to me, that should have been a massive sensation because people love this. But what happens is humans collectively reject information that's not right. So they don't know, but they're unconscious of it, but they don't buy bullshit. And it's really hard to sell humans absolute bullshit. So this is what all, like, it deeply, they just know. So they've realized that they can't keep selling bullshit. They can't use force. They have to package it up and make people think that they want it. Like, you know, like, it's not about this, like the 5G layout is not about just, you know, electric, you know, driverless cars. It's not just about fucking hologramming your nana for breakfast. Are you having breakfast? Like, hey, no, it's not about this. It's not about all these things. It's like, this all helps, but it's packaged up in a way like a Trojan horse. And then, by the way, it's like a whole security system being laid out. But all of these things, when we put our awareness into technology, it can actually disconnect us from what we know is true. And that true meter inside of us is inherently doesn't accept our rights being taken away. So every single person born, particularly like in our generations, that are the mavericks, the rebels, that are the people that have questioned it. Like, all of us, I think, question, like, how do you know if this is really history? Or how do you know that this actually happened back then? And we question these things in school. And our whole life, we've thought outside the paradigm. None of that is allowed in this new world that we're talking about. It's not. Your rights, your freedom, your independent thought, your creative processes are all being shut down and taken away. So if you fall into that category and you care, well, do something. Do something. Like, actually look at what's going on. Like, pay some sort of attention, because this is directly affecting one of your highest value systems, which is freedom, liberty, you know, independent thought.
It just made me think actually about that post on how 7 News kind of come out and go, oh, by the way, we're just spraying some shit in the air, nothing to see here, kind of thing. Jumped on the comments, you know, and was reading through them, and a lady wrote, oh my God, this is so amazing to see so many people calling out what this really is. And I've actually, you know, it inspires me to know that there's so many people out there who are aware of this. And I was like, yeah, me too. And then she wrote, but it also concerns me deeply that there is this many comments on a thread and no one is talking about it. Like, why are not more people talking about it? And maybe it doesn't have to be in a scenario like this where you're literally getting on video and sharing it with people, but these conversations need to be had with more people on a grassroots level. And you know, when you're talking about the vaccinations before, it's like, beyond even just the ingredients, that are some really fucked up ingredients that are getting put in there and injected into our children, they've just come out and openly said that Microsoft have partnered with whoever, and they're now and they've tested it in Bangladesh, which they always do, a third world country, and they roll it out there first because no one pays any attention. But in the vaccinations, they had microchips to the start of this worldwide identification system. Like, this, if that doesn't land as something like, okay, we really need to start thinking about this, even if I'm pro-vax and I really want to have my kids vaccinated, how would you feel about having things like that put into them without even knowing about it? And about, if they can put a fucking microchip in there, what else can they put in there? That's like, there's so many questions for that around that for me. It's deeply concerning that they have the ability to be able to put that stuff, and like, that would have to be a really small freaking microchip for a start. Like, that's tiny, isn't it? It's not like a SIM card size microchip we're talking about here. This is really something super minute, and that's deeply concerning.
There's been finite technology around for years, like nanotechnology, and you don't need to have any sort of physical contact with a human to completely alter their experience in this world or life. You can control them through nanotechnology. And this is definitely something that can easily be distributed out to humans you know, globally. And there's so many different ways that this can actually unfold and this can happen. Like I know that there's I think it was Sweden or Switzerland, I can't remember where, but I was watching a video where people were willingly getting microchipped just so they could pay for a fucking drink at work. Ding. So there's people already being microchipped just here, like in their hands, and it's just like
work.
Yeah. And so they just like everything is just, they can pay for everything through there. So all these things just seem really, really easy, but that's the thing, is if you can't force these things into people, it's just sold to you in a way that is through convenience. Yeah. And it will play on your biggest fears. Like social media plays on the fears of being alone and not being inherently not being accepted. And it plays on a real lack of self-worth and self-love. And all of this stuff should have been cultivated at a very early age. And our education system and our families and communities should be set up so they're in a way that our humans are entering the world, and they know how, they're gardeners of the earth. They know how to grow a garden. They know how to create their future. They know how to go out and get what they want. They understand life. Like they
know how to learn.
They know how to
thinking.
Learn.
This is the
critical
thing.
thinking.
And this is what I see with, you know, anyone who's really making a stand that I feel aligned with. That's ultimately what they promote. Just critical thinking. Think, you know, really think critically, not from an emotional perspective, or just really look at the facts, not fake science, not fake news. Like look for reputable sources that, and then look at the source. If you're not really sure, it's like, okay, where is this coming from? Like so much of research is funded by the very people who don't want, you know, there's fully certain information to come out. I was watching a documentary the other day, and you know, they were talking about, it was the 5G documentary, and talking about how Motorola funded this research. And as soon as the results started to become like, oh, this is not what we want out there, it's like my whole research project got overtaken. And it's like, right, this is what you've got to look at. This is what you need to say. This is how you need to write the abstract. This is what you need to do, because they're funding it. And so,
this is for electromagnetic field exposure, just so I'm watching. So all of your Wi-Fi, your phones, every single thing. So Motorola.
The detrimental effects of it.
Yeah. So the entire report is produced in a way that suits Motorola, not they found.
And he's like, I had to basically just like, not share all of my findings so that it sits with people. And that's fake science, you know, and this is where we need to be really critical about our thinking, and just logical, actually, like just logical.
Oh, well, like, and then be really careful of people who look like they're reputable scientists and talk about critical thinking. So in Australia, if you're tuning in, you may know of our radio station called Triple J. And there is a scientist who has been on there for years, Dr. Carl Currency. He's like, I think he's won a Nobel Peace Prize. He's like, everyone loves this guy. And I saw a YouTube clip on him talking about chemtrails. We call them contrails, and then the loss of critical thinking. So he's a scientist that has a great reputation talking about the loss of critical thinking. And he gets on and he groups all people who believe in chemtrails into one category. Like I could group anyone who believes in scientists into one, like who are scientists into one category. He starts to say stuff that are completely not true. Like, in terms of what we believe, like he's saying, oh, they only believe that chemtrails have been around for the last 10 years. And I'm like, no. And he's like, but we've seen photos since like the 1940s. And it's like, yeah, well, they're not testing them. We're just saying that they're now actually spread all the time in the sky. And then he was saying that these people believe that commercial airliners do them. And I'm like, well, that would be a boring fucking passenger ride, because you watch this guy go, and the planes just grid the sky. It's the same plane. They're not going to Perth. There's you know, stop grouping us all together. And then he was saying that there was that we were spraying the angels, and also that he was doing some internet research and found a massive company supposedly that's making money, and this whole chemtrail thing is about a massive industry to sell you chemtrail free food. Any person out there who knows what chemtrails are is going to laugh at that fucking website. knows they've been around for hundreds of years, and like it's not to do with fucking spraying angels. It's like changing our biological nature and our soil and putting metals into the earth, turning humans into fucking antennas, which is exactly like where it's changing us
now.
Yeah,
like,
and it's fully admitting it, and that these actually things, these things are happening. And he spent 6 minutes just grouping us all together. And this is a scientist who did however many hours of internet research. He Googled chemtrails and then reported this on ABC. That's not fucking critical. The only person I'm worried about critically thinking you is Dr. Carl. Like, I'm sorry, but you have no, that's what you're worried about, the loss of critical thinking. I'm really worried about your loss of critical thinking. That's not what it is. It's like,
but looking at all of it.
Yes. Having said that, it may have been, you know, only 6 minutes. Maybe he said stuff before, maybe he said stuff after the interview. I'm not going to judge him from that, like, completely, but it's just like, please don't pay attention to, I don't know how to finish this up.
I'm back.
You're back.
I'm back. Sorry.
We get an hour. That's, yeah. It's like an hour exactly, pretty much. Yeah. Because everyone's about 50 minutes.
Yeah. Nice. Well, I think that's it really though, isn't it? Like what are we talking about? I'm just got to bring myself back in. To summarize, I guess it's just what we were saying at the start is around the importance of zooming out, looking at the bigger picture, being aware, going, oh yeah, that shit's going on. Okay, now what can I do here in my world to make a difference? And that doesn't have to necessarily, it's not activism. That's not necessarily what it is. It's just about creating the change at a grassroots level. That's how I think we are going to create the biggest change, is like changing what's going on in our community, getting out and being in person with each other more, less online, really deepening our connection with other human beings, really practicing discernment in the information that is, you know, we're coming across, even like what we're sharing. And we've said this before in our videos, it's like really coming from a place of going into your body, not in your head. Don't listen to what we're saying and make a judgment and be like, well, it's going to slam.
Hopefully it's shut now.
This doesn't want to shut today. And making a judgment or anything, good, bad, otherwise, from your head. Go down into your body when you're listening to these videos, because that is the true compass that we are becoming more and more disconnected from. It's not our mind. Our mind does not direct what is right and wrong and the decision-making process and things like that. So, yeah.
I feel there's one more tiny little bit just to share. There's a real strong like collective feel where people inherently don't trust themselves. And I see this play out all the time where people are always asking for advice, to do another course, to, you know, like they think they don't have it, and you all do. And that was taken away from you at a very young age. It's rightfully yours to claim back. But if you keep like continuing the story that you need someone else to help you with your life, or a course or a program or an experience, or you just, I don't know, can you help tune in what's going on for me, or you need to see people for that, withdraw your power, because the only way that you will break that cycle is to just start actually really trusting yourself.
Totally.
And when you trust yourself, you'll have no issue feeling into what's really going on and following that every day. And a little game, if you want to play it, is, if you have the time, and if you don't, fucking make it. Just do this once as a human being. Live an intuitive life. Like, pick a day or a week or a month or a whole year of your life, whatever you can afford. And everything is done by intuition and surrendering to the experience, like surrendering to what your toddler wants, or surrendering into life. So you're not controlled by things that you have to do or think that you should do, the shoulds, that you actually just allow yourself to go with the flow. And if it's like, get in the car, turn left, I don't know where I'm going, just follow it. And really, when you start to live that way, you build trust muscles in yourself. And when you build trust muscles, you'll see magic unfold, and you'll build magic muscles, and you'll start to really experience what it's like to get back into your natural state. Now, your natural state, that spirit of the human, is something they can never take away. They spend a lot of time, effort, and resources trying to. You can go back like that. Yeah, just like that. So if everyone does that, we can withdraw from this unfolding of this dystopian future that we're basically clearly heading into through technology and every other method that's being used. And you can peacefully withdraw in your power without having to push back against or use force. And as you peacefully withdraw and you use your moral compass, nothing will turn you off your personal track. Like, your journey is it's set. Yeah. And there's totally just no doubting it. And that doubt does come from what was taken away from you. And it was mainly through education, where you weren't taught these skills to actually trust. They're actually, you're born with them. They were just taken away. So it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility to build them back, because we need you. Yes. And we need each other. Yeah. It's that self-responsibility piece. It's like, yes, we can go, oh, you know, my childhood, my this, my that. But ultimately, it's up to us to create that change. And I was thinking back to our breakfast conversation this morning. When we're talking about the magic and just reminding each other, because, you know, of all these little times of like when we just get out of our heads and just trust in where we're being led. It always unfolds so perfectly. And it's always when things feel like they go to shit for me, it feels like it's because I've got two in my head and I'm trying to, what's the word? Like, it's like think my way out of it. Yeah. That's exactly what I was trying to say. Like trying to analyze or overanalyze and think my way into my future, rather than just being really present and just allowing and I'll call it active surrender. Like it's a very active process. I like that. Because when it's passive and you're just like sitting on your couch waiting for your life to like fall into place, nothing happens. It's a very active process that you're showing up to all the time. But there's no element of control. There's no like, I need this to happen in this way. It's like you just get into this space of allowing things to unfold as they need to, and in the timing that it takes, and and trust. But it is super active, isn't it? It's like a very active process. And you're not just like handing it over and going, whatever, like do what you want with my life and I'll just sit on the couch and watch fucking Dr. Phil or something. It's very like you're taking a very active role in that. But that's when the magic is there. We just have to allow ourselves to tap into it. And I think that's another thread that ties us together, is that deep inherent. We've had a very similar journey around this, in that it's so many things that can appear as being a challenge are actually very much a part of the process of allowing us to really sink into the magic of what's unfolding. Absolutely. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you. Thank you for another awesome conversation. Yeah. See you next time. Yeah, see you.